So thank you all for joining this IGEL Community Meetup, July 2021. I can't believe it's already July. Last time, sort of talking about, going back to America. Last time I was in America was January 2020. And in some ways, it seems like yesterday. In other ways, it seems like decades ago. But really, since then, we've done so much within the IGEL community. We started up these meetups. We grew the team from one to multiple people now, and it's really great. And the feedback from all this stuff is great. And we're having some amazing presenters. And today, I'm really looking forward to today. We have a couple folks on the line. We have Rody with us, who's a Citrix CTP. In fact, he's just joining Citrix just in a week and a half, I think. And definitely wish him well there. I was a Citrite once, and even have a shirt that says Citrite. So you'll have to get one of those from Zentegra. And and then we also have Andreas, our chief security guy at IGEL, and I'm very excited about both of these. I'm not much of a security guy, as Andreas well knows. I break some of the rules, but I should probably pay attention to learn what not to break, right?
Sorry. It was. I thought about all the things you did to me and didn't notice the question.
Yes, he's thinking about all the things he saw. So anyway, really looking forward to this these sessions, this meetup. So upcoming events. Usually I talk about upcoming events. Believe it or not, we don't have any coming soon. Actually, we have a part 2 of our unified communications piece, which I'll show you the site in a second. But the big news is August, for the first time, we're going to take the month off of meetups. And we're going to do that. Everyone's sort of, like I said earlier, everyone's starting to take a break. COVID's lessening. We're going outside. We're going to bars and restaurants and meeting our friends. So we're going to do the same. Sebastian's going on vacation. I'm going back to America. So we're going to take the month of August and give everyone a break. And we'll pick back up on the meetups in September. So stay tuned. We're definitely planning something cool for September, and we'll let you know as soon as possible. That said, we do have the Unified Communication event coming up, part 2. So head over to igelcommunity.com/events to register for that. It's going to be a great session. Part 1 was really great. It went so long we had to break that into 2. We have a bunch of places where you can find information beyond Slack itself, beyond the IGEL community within Slack. We take a lot of this great data, this information, knowledge that we're creating inside there, and we share it on a bunch of different locations. But really, it's one location, igelcommunity.com. So head on over to there. We do have the video site too, which is igelcommunity.com. And of course, the archive site, where we're taking some of the great Q&A that we have and sharing that publicly. So it's accessible via, let's say, Google. On that note, the video site. So, as you're watching this meetup, we've had tons of these in the past, a bunch of one-off webinars. We also, Sebastian, each month does an amazing, or each week, excuse me, there's an amazing Tech Tip Tuesday videos, which are short little 5 to 15-minute videos detailing a specific topic. For example, display configuration on IGEL OS, how to configure and deal with displays, monitors. So head over to videos.igelcommunity.com for more information like what we're providing today, but also some really great tips and tricks type of resources. So I think you guys will like that if you're not already visiting it. That said, we're getting ready for me to shut up and turn it over to our main man, Rody, who's really gonna dive into some great stuff. And but as he does this, if you have questions, please use the Q&A piece. You'll see it down below, and not chat. So Sebastian and I will be monitoring chat. But please, if you have questions, use the Q&A piece. So in case we miss it within chat, that just makes it nice and clean. So on that note, I'm done. So I'm really,
just jump in before handing over to Rody.
Please.
Since we have a couple of news and features that we are delivering in the IGEL communities, like the Tech Tip Video Tuesdays, if you have a topic that you might not have seen already in our list, or that you're feeling that you need more insights, just feel free to reach out to me on Slack or via email and asking for a topic, and I would be happy to cover that in a tutorial video. The second thing, we have already a couple of technology partners listed in our channel view. They are not added by default to your view. So if you're interested in getting more insights in thin print or maybe end computing devices, you have the ability to add some technology partners channels, which starts with TP minus. So just in case you didn't notice that, we have a lot of Azure Ready partners already there, and they're happy to hear and read from you. That's all from my side.
Perfect. There for a second, I lost that little floating bar within Zoom. So, like I said, I'm really excited to introduce Rody. He's going to go through some great stuff. So, Rody, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks. I also lost the, well, where it is, here it is. Zoom played tricks on me, so let me first share my screen.
Sometimes Zoom is not your friend.
Well, it's the best of the worst, so to say.
That's the truth.
All right, I think you can see my screen now.
Yep, it's there.
All right. So welcome everybody, and thanks for having me here. Today I want to talk with you about how to optimize the user experience, and it's quite broad topic. And as this is an IGEL event, for sure, I have some IGEL tips and tricks how to even optimize the user experience any further. For one that doesn't know me, my name is Rody Kossen. I'm at the moment still a lead consultant at PQR, but as Douglas said, I'm joining Citrix in a week and a half as a quality engineer for the HDX team. So currently I'm still a Citrix CTP, but as I'm joining Citrix, I need to say goodbye to that. But I still want to take part of the community, so do webinars and visit events as well. If you want to reach out to me, ping me via Twitter or LinkedIn, or just say something in the chat and I can drop you my email as well. So for today, we're talking about user experience, as I said. So what can you expect of this session? First of all, I always start with some basics to get some basic terminology and basic understandings about how encoders and stuff work. And then I step into the different encoders, especially for Citrix. Then I go how to test, how do you build a test environment, and how do you run tests. And then I end with some real life scenarios I've digged into and give some tips and tricks there. And at the end, the lessons learned. Because it's all about, for me, it's all about user experience. We all want to be a happy Igil or hedgehog or a happy end user, because a happy end user is more productive, and it's being happy is better than being sad, right? And we want to be to help our users to be productive and not to complain about the user experience. So let's start with some key takeaways. As I said, user experience is really key, and invest time to enhance it. So take your time and test around to enhance that user experience, because users will be grateful for it. But you need to have some basic knowledge of the remoting protocols to make the right decisions for your situation. And I say your situation because everything I tell is my situation, but always reflected on your environment. So test it in your environment with your applications and your own network characteristics, your endpoints, your versions, etc., because that really matters. So let's first start with some basics of encoding, remoting protocols. Because if you browse the web and you start looking into remoting protocols, you see so many different terms. Because most remoting protocols also use video codecs, for example, for encoding the video stream. And if you dig into that, you will get terms like H264, H265, HEVC, BT2020, VP9, And I can go on and on and on. So you need to dig into some topics before you can understand how remoting protocols work. But the first thing is colors. So let's dig into that part, because you think, right, colors, I look at grass and it's green. But did you know that color perception is relative? So the green that I see is not the same green as you see. Even if we are both not colorblind, but for colorblind people especially, their perception is different. But we can only see roughly around 10 million colors, nothing more than that. But there are insects or birds like pigeons who can even see up to 10 billion colors. So they can see more of the color spectrum or more lights like infrared or other types of light than our eyes can see. So color is really a perception in our own brain. And colors can also trick you. I always use this picture to show that, because in this checkerboard you can see the square A and the square B. If you look at this picture, for me, the square A and square B have different colors. But are they different? Or is it just a perception of my brain? Well, if I interconnect those, if I connect those two squares, suddenly they are the same color. And if you don't believe me, take a screenshot of this screen, take a color picker, and you will see that A and B are really the same color. They both have the same color information. But it's just a perception of our brain that the square B has a different color. And that's because of the shade on it. Our eyes perceive that color differently or process it differently. And that's just one of the things. If you Google on this topic, you'll find many cool things where our brain tricks us with colors. So as I said, we can only see roughly around 10 million colors. But if you look at your monitor, you will have more than 10 million colors. You will have at least 10-bit, which means 60 million colors. Or you can go even higher. And that's because of to make the colors smooth. If you look at the right picture, you can see a gradient starting to come up, especially around the sun and the sky where it's orange, and you see hard lines because there's just not enough color information to make a smooth transition between the light blue to the yellow, to the dark yellow, to the darker part in the down side of the picture. But if you look at the 10-bit picture, it looks much more smooth. So in computer terms, we need more than 10 million colors, but we can only perceive 10 million of it. But it's just to create smoothness. And this is also what you see with compression. If you want to compress an image, you can lower the bit depth. But lowering the bit depth also means losing color information, and also means that you lose the smoothness and transitions of colors. So why do we compress things in the first place? Well, if we take a full HD video stream, so 1920 by 10,000p with 24-bit color information, it means that you have roughly 6 megabytes per frame, per single frame. So if you run a 30 frames per second movie, it's 177 megabytes per second. So not megabit, but megabyte. If we go up to 4K, it's getting even worse. So if we do still 24-bit color, then it means that we'll have roughly around 24 megabytes per single frame, which is more than 700 megabytes per second if you run a 30 frames per second movie. I don't know how your internet bandwidth is at your place, but I have a gigabit, but getting 4K at 30 FPS, it's not doable with a gigabit. So that's why we need compression. And there are different options in compression. So first of all, we have lossy. And lossy compression means it's irreversible. So you reduce the data size, but you can't go back to the original. And there's a good example on the right side of this screen where you see on the left side a image of a bird with a low level of compression. So you can see the distinctive, you can see the feathers. You can clearly see different color lines in his head. So the white and black lines. And if you look at the right picture, you can clearly see it's heavily compressed, but its data size is heavily reduced as well. But it costs quality. And on the other hand, of lossy, we have lossless compression, and that means it's reversible. And it's reversible because, for example, we use it in zip files. So if you can't reverse a zip compression, then why compress it in the first place, right? So if you want to compress some files and you can't uncompress it, decompress it, you're screwed. So other formats of lossless compression are PNG for images or Dolby True HD, for example, for audio. And Citrix also has a different term called visually lossless. It's irreversible, but I don't think you can see the difference with your own eyes. So it's a sort of compression, but on such a high quality that you almost can't spot the difference. And as I said, many encoders like Citrix or VMware or even Microsoft with AVD use a video codec like H264 for compression of moving images. And to show you how powerful these codecs are, I created a size comparison of a screen capture of my favorite homepage with tech news here in the Netherlands called tweakers.net. So I created a screenshot of the homepage and saved it as a PNG, which is lossless. But I created also a 5-second movie of that homepage at 30 FPS in the same resolution. And it's only 400 kilobytes in size, while the still PNG is more than 800 kilobytes. So I have 150 frames with just 400 kilobytes versus one single frame with more than 800 kilobytes. So H264 really does some magic to compress, but compression always comes at a cost. And as I said earlier, a simple way of compressing your image is reducing the color information. And one way to do that is using something called chroma subsampling. Chroma subsampling reduces the color information, and it's based on the idea that our eyes or our visual system is less sensitive for color than luminance, so the brightness. So we can reduce some color information on some spots, but if you lower the luminance, for example, we will directly see it. So by saving the luminance, the picture clarity is maintained. And it uses a different format than RGB for storing the color information to maintain the luminance information. And it's also called YUV. And then maybe you've seen the term somewhere already. It can reduce the size file of a size up to 50%, depending on the chroma subsampling format you use. So here I have a matrix of how it works. So in the top left corner, you will see chroma subsampling 444, which isn't even chroma subsampling because it doesn't do anything. But it's just there as a reference. So 444 means that you use all the information, and the final image you compress contains the same information. So you take all the luma, you take all the chroma, So the luma is the Y, the chroma is the U and the V, and the final pixel is the same as the original. But a very common version is 420. And 420 means you still take all the luma, like 444, but you only take 2 chroma pixels. So the final image looks differently. But with a high resolution like Full HD, you won't notice that difference, especially for moving images, because the image is moving so fast, and it's just different on pixel level, that you might not notice that difference. But that's with moving images, because it has a downside. And the downside is with sharp contrast. So here on the left side, we have 420, and on the right side, we have 444. And if it's not clear via Zoom, just Google YUV 444 versus 420, and you get the same picture like this. And on the left side, you can see that the blue and the red, for example, here are blending into each other, and especially the red on the blue, because we lose pixels or color information on pixels. You will see that pixels start merging into each other, so colors are merging into each other, and it's less clear to read. And on the right side, we have 444. So if you're going to do color compression with 420, use it in the right way. So if you have a YouTube video, you won't notice 420. If you are a CAD user which uses AutoCAD, for example, or if you want to read a text document with colored text, don't use 420 compression, because you will get a headache at the end of the day by trying to read it. And as I said, you can also see it with CAD software. So on the left side, 420, and you can see that the green loses its brightness a bit because of these very thin lines that with 2D CAD you'll see. So the bright green merges with the gray, and you get a less bright green. And that's just not because the luminance is gone, but because of the low pixel count of the lines. And on the right side, you will see the original image where you have a brighter green color. So I can go on this topic for many more hours, I think. I wrote a comprehensive blog almost 2 years ago. I still need to create a part 2, but I haven't found the time to do it. But if you want to know more about codecs and things like chroma subsampling, just go to my blog and read it. Take a cup of coffee with it. It's quite hard to read because it's quite dry stuff. But hey, you will learn from it. So now we have seen some basics. Let's go through the details of the different encoders, and especially with Citrix. As you might know, as I said, I'm joining Citrix, and my focus has been on Citrix for the most part. But this part of this also counts for other vendors like VMware or Microsoft. But Citrix has different options for encoding. So they use ThinWire for years now. So ThinWire is a combination between JPEG, PNG, and some smart encoders for text called LRE. And it's a very basic codec which works great, but not in all situations. And then they have the adaptive display or actively changing regions encoder, which is ThinWire combined with H264. So they use ThinWire for still images, for text, for still pictures. But once they notice a moving image, they will switch to H264 or even H265 if you're licensed up for it. So it's a good combination between the different encoders. And you have also the possibility to go up to build to lossless, for example, which means that for moving images, they will use a lossy compression, but once the moving part stops, so you stop moving your 3D model or stop watching a video stream, they will build it up to lossless. So we get the real quality, or the best quality possible. And they enhanced it a while back, and it's a great codec for good use cases, which I will go on into later on. If you are into moving images, if you have many moving images on your screen, or do 3D CAD or something like that, it's best to go for H264, H265 for the entire screen. And you can do H264 with YUV 420 by setting the quality to low, medium, or high. Or you can do YUV 444 if you set it to always lossless. If you want to go for H265, you can only go up to 420. There's no 444 option. And of course, you can still do the lossless compression with thin wire, but know that it breaks your performance. And if you have a GPU, and especially an NVIDIA GPU like NVIDIA vGPU virtualization for the GPU, you can offload all these encoders to the GPU as well. So you lower your CPU usage and enhance the user experience there. So why use a GPU with Citrix? As I said, GPUs can offload rendering and protocols encoding, or CPUs can offload rendering and protocol encoding to GPUs. So you lower the CPU usage, but GPUs also enhance the remote user experience in UC environments, because most applications lean on the GPU. Start Zoom, start Teams, or start even Word or PowerPoint or Excel. They all use the GPU to show animations and other stuff. So machines want a GPU, so why not use it in a EUC environment? So that's why GPUs matter in a remoting scenario. And I think NVIDIA has one of the best options at this moment, especially on-prem. With vGPU of NVIDIA, AMD is not that big in that segment. Intel is also not yet there, so I hope that those also will step up in the upcoming years, but NVIDIA is the way to go there. So before I go into the scenarios I tested, let's go through how to test. Because if you have an environment you want to test, you have to create a test procedure. So you can do, first of all, a benchmark, like 3DMark, Passmark, or Unigen. You can run that on your environment to see what the maximum performance is. But that doesn't say anything about the user experience, because I think you will start testing with just one user. And if you have one user on a server where normally 100 people will work on, you will have the best user experience. But if you load up that server with 100 people, what's the user experience then? So for that, you need testing tools like LogGen, LogNVSI, Rex Analytics, or others, where you can do repeatable and scalable tests. So you can create scenarios where you can run different tests, like opening a Word file and so on, opening YouTube, starting a video, and they are scalable. So you can go up to whatever users you want and test your complete platform for scalability and see what the real user experience is when you put many users on it. But check your test tooling, because not all test toolings also bring the user experience part into it. And the last option, which you should always do, is include your users into your tests. So if you have different settings you want to try out, do a Pepsi Coca-Cola test. Give a user two desktops, one called A, one called B. Don't tell them what the difference is. And just let them work on it, and let them tell you on a scale between 1 and 5. So 1 is the worst, 5 is the best, what the user experience was. Just create a questionnaire with a few questions where you ask questions around the user experience and how they thought it was working. and just mix it. So don't tell them what you do, and just test with users. A powerful tool you can also use for testing the different encoder settings is RD Analyzer. Or I rather say I was one of the developers, because I'm quitting with RD Analyzer because of my work with Citrix. But RD Analyzer is a great tool to try out the different encoder settings on the fly. So it supports Citrix, virtual apps and desktops, VMware Horizon, Microsoft RDP, Microsoft AVD. You can monitor the remoting protocols, and you can make on-demand changes of the remoting protocol for Citrix and VMware. So you can switch the encoder, switch the quality, switch the max frames per second on the fly, and you will directly see the changes. And it just costs 50 euros per year for one person license. They also sell a company-wide license if you're interested. But it's a great tool to test all those different settings in your environment. So how do I test? So I have a small test setup with an HP workstation. So no fancy server, just a workstation with a decent CPU in it, 10 cores running on quite a high clock speed with a sufficient amount of RAM. And I have an NVIDIA RTX 6000 in it for GPU support, running HV Community Edition, or sometimes I switch to VMware if I want to run Horizon tests. And I use an Elgato frame grabber to capture the output of my endpoints, so it doesn't interfere with the endpoint itself. So the HDMI split capture device goes between my endpoint, like the IGEL UD3, the new Horizon version, and my monitor, and I capture it, the video stream on a different device, so I know what the user experience is on the endpoint without messing there with video capturing stuff. So it's a really helpful piece of hardware and just costs 150 euros or something like that. And as I said, I use an IGEL UD3. I also test sometimes with other endpoints like a MacBook or a Windows endpoint to see how environments behave with different endpoints. And if you want to do testing with IGEL OS, and you use Citrix, and you want to know what your CPU usage is on your endpoint while running your test, you can enable real-time monitoring by going through the system options in the registry. You can enable monitor real-time performance settings, and that's really useful. So here on the right-hand side, you can see an example where I run a YouTube video. You can see that the endpoint is just using 5% of CPU because it offloads it to the GPU. But it's really, really useful for seeing that information real time. But again, don't forget to test with your applications, your network behavior like bandwidth, latency, packet loss, and your own endpoints, because that really matters. All right, enough of all the boring stuff. Let's go into real life scenarios. So the first scenario that I took is a CAD worker using applications with like Autodesk, AutoCAD, MicroStation, DraftSight, SolidWorks, Inventor, Siemens NX. So it's a combination of 2D and 3D CAD software, and they need a high performance VM. So at least 2 or better 4 vCPU. And the clock speed with those applications also matters. So look for a CPU with 3 gigahertz or higher clock speeds, because most of these applications are still single-threaded. And if you add a vGPU to the mix, which you need for those kind of applications, you need at least a 2 gigabyte profile. So if you use a T42Q, which is the Quadro or the virtual workstation profile supporting those workloads, Or if you want to go to 4x4K screens, for example, you need a 4 GB frame buffer profile, so a T4 4Q or an RTX 6000 4Q, whatever you have in hands. And with CVAT, we will use NVENC. So we use the encoding capabilities of the GPU to encode the video stream with H.264 YUV 444. So I will show you a demo video of how the user experience is. For if you want to watch this this video later on as well, I place a YouTube link on the screen because the video stream is not always working correctly via Zoom. So you can watch it in your own time later on. So here I have a Windows 10 VDI desktop with a GPU running a 3D CAD workload. So here Lego Digital Designer, which is just a replica for a 3D workload. And we're looking at the Death Star. And as you can see, the user experience is great. We're running always lossless, so the quality looks great. And we run at 30 frames per second because I kept it at 30 frames per second, but we can go up to 60 if you want. But as you can see, the image is really smooth and it works great. So we have happy users. So in this scenario, I use the video codec for compression set to for the entire screen. So we use the video codec for the entire screen option. And the image quality is set to always lossless. And for sure, we enabled hardware encoding for video. So we encode the video stream on the NVENC chip on the GPU. And we set the visual, the allow visually lossless to enabled to allow YUV 444 with the GPU encoding. So the hardware encoding, if you use that, you need to enable visually lossless if you want to have YUV 444. But bear in mind that this only works for Windows endpoints. So if you're using an IGEL Linux OS, this doesn't work. And it falls back to thin wire, always lossless, which is a worse compression. And your user experience is not that great. But hey, if you have Windows endpoints, users will be happy. But then in our second scenario, COVID came around. And I still see many people working from home, and I think it's there to stay, especially in a good hybrid way. So 2 or 3 days working from home and 2 or 3 days working at the office just to meet people. So a good balance between there. But those people that first worked from the office on CAD software now are working from home and maybe have a crappy connection. So a 4 megabit connection, ADSL like, or whatever you can have. So you have much slower connections than the connection you had at the office. So if we use the same settings on the encoder as the previous situation, how does that user experience look? Well, here it is. And no, it's not a PowerPoint presentation. It really is 2 or 3 frames per second if you have a 4 megabit connection. So this really sucks, so to say. Users are complaining. They are not happy. They can't work. It's just not doable. By the time they clicked on something, they already had 10 cups of coffee. So this is not what you want to give to your users, right? So sad users, they are not productive. So we need to do something. We need to optimize these settings. So how do we optimize it? Well, as I mentioned earlier, Citrix has a possibility to use build to lossless. And build to lossless is really great for the user experience in those situations. And I think it's even a better option than always lossless, because it works in all scenarios and it just gives a better user experience, and it lowers the bandwidth as well. So on the top left corner, we have the YUV 444, the always lossless option, and on the top right corner, we have the build to lossless option. And I hope it starts. Yeah, all right. So you can see that the top right corner gets around what we get here now. Well, it depends a bit on how far we zoomed out, but with 3 megabit, it starts to build up now to 30 frames per second, while on the top left corner, we still have just a few frames per second. So the user experience with build to lossless is much better, as you can see. And we can also see that with the GPU encoder, because we encode much more frames per second with the other option, because we can put more frames through the wire. So in this situation, I used still for the entire screen option, but now with the image quality set to build to lossless. So first, it uses a H.264, H.265 codec to build up the image while it's moving, and once you set the image still, it will build it up with a PNG lossless compression to give you the highest image quality. And because it uses the H.264, H.265 video codec, you can still use hardware encoding for this encoder as well. So we set that to enabled. We allowed visually lossless to get YUV 444 on Windows endpoints, but here with this option, it falls back to 420 on all other platforms. So if you use a Linux endpoint or a macOS endpoint or a mobile endpoint, it will use 420. And if you use a Windows endpoint, it will use 444, which gives the best color quality. And here I also enabled optimize for 3D workloads as well to make sure that everything works correctly. And in those situations where you have low bandwidth, high latency, make sure to enable EDT and check your MTU size, and enable MTU size detection, which is available from CVET 1912 and up. Because with EDT, you get more frames per second through the wire compared to TCP. And as I said, this is an IGEL community meeting, so I also included some IGEL optimization for this scenario, because in this situation, I would recommend to always use the latest workspace app. We're talking about high performance environments here, so you want to keep up with your Citrix version, but also with your workspace app version to make sure that you get the best image quality, the best user experience by using the latest and greatest features. And as I said, use EDT. It's enabled by default with fallback to TCP. So if EDT is somehow disabled or it's blocked, it will fall back to TCP. And test with enable hardware decoding, because it will lower the CPU on the endpoint, the CPU usage on the endpoint dramatically. So here on the right side, I have 2 screenshots where you streamed a 4K video shown on a full HD display, and I enabled the Citrix real-time performance metrics, so you can see the CPU of the endpoint, and you can see that the UD3, the new Ryzen, uses almost 20% of CPU if I disable the hardware decoding. So one core is on 21%, one on 14, one on even on 37%, and one roughly around 5. So it's doing not that much. But it's quite a high CPU usage for such a fast device. So if you have an older or a less powerful endpoint, make sure to test hardware decoding, because on the right side, I have the same screenshot, but then with hardware encoding enabled. You can see it only uses around 2% of CPU. So it completely offloads the H.264 codec to the GPU, which is included in the device. So you'll have better performance and less CPU usage, but test it with your environment, because I can't say what it does for all the different endpoints out there. So make sure to test it before you put it out in the wild, but I would really recommend it with this workload. So the last scenario I have here is the office worker. And think about the office worker as somebody who uses applications like Microsoft Office, but also uses YouTube or, to watch video streams, or watches instruction videos online, or whatever video content they might want to see for their work. And you can use a VDI solution for it, but also server-based computing, so XenApp or virtual apps, how it's called today. So if we look at the VDI option with Windows 10, I would recommend at least 2 vCPU with 6 GB of RAM. And if you add a GPU to it, add a 1 GB frame buffer profile or 2 GB frame buffer profile, depending on the monitor resolution you have, and the amount of monitors. And if you use SBC, so virtual apps, size it accordingly to your hardware. So maybe around 10 vCPUs and at least 64 GB of RAM. And if you add a GPU to it, make sure to have at least 8 GB of frame buffer for 16 users. And if you want to go to 25 or 30 users per VM, you should go at least to a 16 GB frame buffer profile. Otherwise, you will see many different issues. So if I'm an office worker and I watch sometimes moving images or video streams or whatever, do I need a GPU? So in this situation, I have in the top left corner a 2 vCPU, Windows 10 VDI, and in the top right corner the same VDI, but then backed with a GPU. So you can clearly see that the user experience is okay, right? So I have 30 frames per second with just 70% of encoder CPU usage. But if we look at the total amount of CPU usage on the VM, it's just 100% flat out. Because YouTube, the browser, also uses the CPU to decode the video stream on your CPU. And if we compare it with the right side, here we have also 30 frames per second. We have somewhat less CPU usage because we use 4 actively changing regions. It still uses some CPU. But the overall CPU usage on your machine is just 1/3 of, or maybe 1/3 to a half of what you had without a GPU. And you can clearly see the GPU is used quite heavily to decode the video stream. So the user experience is okay with without a GPU. But you don't want to have this on your platform. You don't want to have all the users to have 100% of CPU usage. Otherwise, your platform just dies. So it makes sense to use a codec made for moving images for videos, and also use a GPU to offload that stuff as well. So if we look at the codec, so in the previous video, I showed the CPU versus GPU scenario, but what if we compare thin wire versus an H.264 codec. So on the left side, we have H.264 YUV 444, and on the right side, we have thin wire. Oh, I see that this is the wrong. Sorry, guys, I see I have the wrong video here. I think I mixed up a video. But you can watch it. Well, I can just start it on YouTube. Let me just show it on YouTube then. So this is the same comparison with a 3D model, just to show you the difference in image quality. So I have a let me just make it a bit bigger. I have a thin wire option here on the left side, and I have a H.264 YUV 420 option on the right hand. And you can see that the YUV or the moving image encoder with H.264 just performs better. I get more frames per second than the other one. So it just runs more smooth. I have less CPU usage, while the CPU usage is mostly used here by the application, but also a bit by the encoder. So it makes sense to use a H.264 encoder for moving images. But what if you use Office applications with text? Well, compressing text with H.264 isn't that great. As I explained earlier, with YUV 420, you lose color information, and that's bad with sharp things like text or sharp lines with 2D CAD. So as you can see here, you can see clearly artifacts around the text. The compression on text is just too heavy with H.264. You can read it, but it's hard to read, and you get a headache by the end of the day. But if you use thin wire for that same part of text, the image is sharp because it uses a special codec for text to make sure that the text is always lossless. Because it's just easier to read. You won't get a headache. You won't be tired by the end of the day. So we need to make choices, right? So on the one hand, we want to have a thin wire codec, but on the other hand, if we watch a movie, we need to have a moving image or an H.264 encoder, video encoder. So luckily, we have with Citrix for actively changing regions to the rescue, where you can have the combination of thin wire and H.264 or a video codec. So here you have an example of a news website with a video stream on it. So that's the green bounding box. That's a moving image part, which is encoded with H.264 or H.265, and also can be offloaded to the GPU. We have still images, the red bounding boxes, and we have text, the blue bounding boxes, which are encoded by a text encoder. So here we have the best combination for this workload. If you use VMware Horizon, they have the switch encoder, which roughly does this as well, but they only switch for full screen. So you either have full screen H.264, H.265, or full screen JPEG PNG encoding. And if you add a GPU to the mix with VMware, the switch encoder doesn't work. So you need to choose between those options. So they don't have the same capability as Citrix has for actively changing regions. So for this situation with Citrix, I used for actively changing regions with the image quality set to high, and I enabled the hardware encoding because I used the GPU to offload the H.264 encoding to the GPU. And the good thing here is it's supported on all endpoints. So as we still use a video codec for the moving images part, I would still recommend to test out with the hardware decoding on your IGEL endpoint to see if you can lower the CPU usage, which especially makes sense for older endpoints, because most of the endpoints have an H.264 decoding chip. Even your phone has it, or your TV. So there are so many endpoints, and it's quite an old codec already. So there are many old endpoints out there which support it, which will just enhance the user experience when they watch a video stream. But what if you don't have a GPU in your environment and want to stream videos on YouTube or other websites, and your user experience is shitty because your central environment just doesn't have the CPU power to host that, to support that? Well, but you can use technology, for example, with Citrix, like browser content redirection. It's supported by IGEL. You only need to enable it. It's disabled by default. So if you go into sessions, then Citrix Global, H6 Multimedia, you can enable browser content redirection on the endpoint. And then you need to configure browser content redirection for Citrix in your policies. I wrote 2 blog posts about it. So the first one is how it works and some basic stuff. And in the second part, I will dig a little bit deeper into browser content redirection with things like authentication. So with BCR, you give up the list of websites you want to redirect, and those websites are redirected to the endpoint. If you use BCR, make sure to use the latest and greatest workspace app and latest and greatest VDA in your central environment, because they enhance it over the years. So make sure you use the latest versions there. And also test, because I don't know what hardware you have, so I can't say if it works great. So it depends really on your endpoint. If you have a very old endpoint with a slow CPU, I don't know how your user experience is going to be. So testing your environment. So some lessons learned for today. As you have seen with different videos I showed, you need to optimize the encoder settings for your different workloads. So look at your environment and look what types of workloads you have, and see or group them and see if you can mess around with the encoder settings, see which encoder settings there are and which work best for your environment. You can use my 2 scenarios as a base for it. So you can use that to drop that on your environment and see how that works with your CAD workloads or your Office workloads, and see how that fits for you. And make sure to optimize IGEL OS for your workload. So if you use Citrix and use high-end CAD workloads and use video codecs, for example, make sure to test with hardware decoding. If you want to use BCR, make sure to enable it and test around with it. So optimize your IGEL OS and make sure to stay up to date, because IGEL really does a tremendous job, a great job there with keeping up to date and making sure that the latest and greatest features are in the OS. So if Citrix releases a new workspace app, I think it's almost day 1 that IGEL has it in their OS. You can download it and test around with it if it's giving you better user experience. And as I've demonstrated, the network conditions have a high impact on the user experience. So your settings you used in the office don't always have a good user experience for people at home or where they have a shitty network condition. So make sure to test around with it as well. And try to keep up with the release cadence of Citrix or other vendors, because they release so many great features for those situations where you have less bandwidth or crappy connection, or if you have a high-end workload, they enhance the encoders every release. So make sure to keep up to date and don't stick with the LTSR, but just go with the current release if you have one of those workloads. But in the end, well, I have 2 small kids, and the funny thing about kids is they are not shy to make mistakes, so they learn from it, and we tend to forget that. So try things, make mistakes, but in the end you will learn from it, and you can use all that in your environment. So all the things you learn, all the things you've learned there in the field, you can put that in your environment to enhance user experience. So last few key takeaways. As I said earlier, user experience is key. So invest the time to enhance it. Get some basic knowledge of how the different encoders and protocols work to make the right decisions for your environment, and testing your environment with your applications and your network heuristics. So with that, I'm at the end of my session. I don't know if there are any questions I need to answer here, and I hope it was very informational.
So first of all, yes, definitely. I learned a lot of things regarding this youth and compressing, which was really interesting to me, because we have this question quite often: which kind of quality should we use in our environment? And I always relied on some Citrix knowledge base articles, but now I can also explain them a bit and send you video to that. So we have a question actually that I couldn't answer from Fabio. I don't know if you have an eye on the question and answer section at the moment, but I can read it. At this moment, it is not clear for me how I can use all this information in my environment. Is there a way to have an audit to understand and choose the right solution that fits my needing?
Yeah, well, like I said, see, first of all, you need to know what types of users you have, right? So do you have high-end 3D CAD workloads, or do you have typical office workloads where you have a mix of office applications and videos and whatever you run there? So first of all, you need to have an understanding what are your users doing on your environment. And with that information, you can use my 2 scenarios, for example, or go to your local IT IT company, which maybe has more insights in the different combinations that work for you. Like if I come at a customer as a consultant at PQR, I talk with users, I talk with end users, talk with IT, and see what they have configured and get a overview of the different applications they run. And with that in mind, I will just set some policies and see how that works out. So I use tools like RD Analyzer to show users the different user experiences with the different encoders, and fine-tune that environment for them. And in the end, you will get a set of policies that work for your environment. But also make sure to look at the different network conditions. As I showed in the demo, the amount of bandwidth is also very important. So if you want to have a very high quality, but you have a low bandwidth situation, you need to make some sort of how do you say it in English? You need to select the right amount of image quality because you can't have it all. You can't have high FPS with high quality in a low bandwidth situation. So either you have a low FPS with high quality, or a medium or low quality with a high FPS. So see what works best for you, your users. But if you have questions about it, Fabio, you can always reach out to me, and we can chat about it. No problem there.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Right.
Yeah, Rody, that was absolutely brilliant. I loved it. I truly, truly loved it. Really great.
Thank you.
Really great.
Just in case,
absolutely.
I guess we already seen a part of your presentation in Lisbon on the A2EVC. Is that possible? Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
that's possible. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Cool. Thank you very much. Was again really impressive.
Thank you.
Very impressive. Thank you very much. Yeah. So with no further ado, let's just move over to Andreas. We talk about security and learn about all the things that I do wrong.
Oh yes, all examples shown today. Yeah, are directly from my work with Douglas. Yeah, so we will talk it through, Doug. All right. So let me share my screen. Which presentation is it? I think this one. So now you see a screen with a laser pointer. Yes, so I can start.
It's there.
So yes, thank you very much for inviting me for to this community session. It's my first public presentation about security at IGEL, and just want to start again with introducing myself and tell you why I do what I do. I'm the Chief Information Security Officer at IGEL. I'm quite new. I started in May 2020, 1 year ago. It's not much in information security time, and it's not much time to implement security. But yeah, I will show you what we have, what I did, and what we are going still to implement. Before joining IGEL, I worked for ThyssenKrupp Marine Systems. It's a big technology company in northern Germany. It's not ThyssenKrupp. It's a part of ThyssenKrupp, specialized on naval systems. So I integrated security into battleships, submarines, and other research and defense projects. It was quite interesting because high-level security with infinite money is always fun, but in the civil world it looks a little bit different. Before that, I worked as a consultant for a security consulting company, and that's what I did. I implemented information security management systems and business continuity management systems, business continuity plans at trading companies, finance companies, insurance, and the very interesting company was power grids, critical infrastructures. You know all the books about power outages caused by hackers, and I've looked into this. I did a deep dive, and helped maybe about 50 power grid companies in Germany to prevent it or lower the risk in the end. Before that, that was my first employer, the Armed Forces of Germany. In 2002, when I was 19, I started my regular mandatory service, and I've seen, it's cool stuff. Electronic warfare it interests me, and decided to stay for 8 years. Okay, I'm not alone at IGEL. I work with a team of people, and just wanted to tell you, to show you how we work together, because basically, you have seen the community session with my colleague Matthias Huber, our product security manager. We have different areas of responsibility, but we work together as one team, because the whole responsibility for information security and maybe the risks attached to it can also be mitigated with product security. In the end, I'm here. I have a very clear view on managing risks, and one of the risks, or some of the risks, I will show you on the next slide, are just a reputation loss. as we encountered from SolarWinds and Kaseya within the last 6-7 months. Yeah, that's something we want to avoid. So I do my work, and I support my colleagues with their work. And of course, development environment is IT infrastructure thing at IGEL. So I'm directly responsible for the security of the development environment. Product security manager Matthias, he helps me a lot with ISMS documentation. He reviews policies, he creates records for the ISMS, and of course he's focused on his product security stuff on all the documentation we produce here. We have a security analyst, a very smart cybersecurity guy. He supports the operations IT and the business applications IT with vulnerability scans. He scans for vulnerabilities and wrong configurations all day. Mostly in the product world, but also in operations IT. And we have a security colleague in North America. He's a VP of Legal Compliance Information Security. He supports also with all the requirement stuff, with security awareness, information security reporting, and documentation and so on. So he's my right hand at the other end of the world. Okay, I've talked about risks, but yeah, please understand that I don't want to go too deep into detail about this. This is a public session, so yeah, I can show you the threats that keep me awake, or more or less at night, and yeah, I can tell you that we really take care of these. So yeah, the biggest threats we see as a software company, is to survive on the market. And when we get our product gets compromised, or we deliver a backdoor to a customer, this would cause a really severe or critical reputation loss. We couldn't sell our software anymore, and we would vanish from the market. So that's something we want to avoid with highest priority. Our product integrity is our treasure. So compromised product customer service vulnerabilities, and customer service vulnerabilities, that's something we want to avoid with high priority. Of course, your information we process in our ERP, CRM systems, and so on our collaboration tools. And of course, unauthorized internal and confidential information access is our protection of our information sets. Of course, we have the standard threats, information leakage, information getting away from the company on different unauthorized ways, software vulnerabilities. It's daily business. It's an arms race, meanwhile, between cyber criminals and software developers. Of course, we see that there are possibilities for internal service outages and productivity loss. That's something we want to avoid. Pay people for nothing. Malware, ransomware. It's daily business, daily threat. Customer service outages. So the product will work. The product will be clean, but you can't reach our support. It's something we want to avoid too. And the rest is rather usual stuff. Undetected security events. We go on threat hunting every day. Phishing is spam. It's a daily business. Human make mistakes. Human ignore processes. We try to prevent unauthorized physical access. We are everywhere. We are working worldwide. It's quite easy to sneak into an office and plug in a device or steal something. We take care about this one too. Unauthorized network traffic access and interception. Yes, of course, it's a thing too. But that's when what network security controls and encryption are for. what happens at IGEL? How does it look like? So no, the security statistics. I can show you. Yeah, these are this is a statistic, a cleaned up statistic from our security incident and event monitoring. So very interesting for me is the quantity of cyber attack methods and the distribution. As we see, yeah, we have more tailored or critical malware than regular malware. So we see we are a target on the cyber criminals radar. Because they don't even try, or it doesn't even gets through the first filters. Yeah, so this is that's being reported in our second defense layer. Yeah, that there is some kind of malware that's detonated in a sandbox, yeah, and analyzed, and we see, okay, there's no definition for that, so someone sat down and programmed a malware especially for this case. Very concerning for me. 8,000 spear phishing and CEO fraud attempts. Very good, mate. I told Sebastian today about it, that a few months ago, meanwhile, okay, we moved into a new office in Bremen. And 1 week after we moved, the faked mail, yeah, with logos, IGEL logos, IGEL branding, and so on, already had the new address. So someone is out there observing us very closely, trying to trick someone to click on these links and so on. Phishing is daily business. It's a lot. Yes, spam is even more. Yeah, but this is basic stuff, basic security stuff. That's what we have solutions for, and reactive measures and so on. What is quite it's a dark side of the availability of solutions, because for us it's part of our strategy that we have a work from anywhere concept. If we can work from anywhere, an attacker could possibly access our solutions from anywhere too. So this was one of our biggest arguments for multi-factor authentication, yeah, to reduce this risk to a really minimum level. On the distribution, we can see that hackers or the cyber criminals are quite smart. Okay, the one quarter of this attack, it's quite typical distribution, because these people are very visible for the company. They are salespeople, marketing people. You can't ignore them on social media, so they are found and identified easily. But the attack distribution on executives and middle management shows that our attackers try to access sensitive data, and I call them multiplicators, because the middle management has access to the management above and the people they lead. So they are quite valuable targets. 20% of all other attacks are distributed on all other departments. Yes, customer support, IT and development, but not named users, but our service addresses. support@igel.com, IT support@igel.com, and so on. So everything that's orchestrated by a ticket system. But as far as we know, and we look very closely, nothing severe happened yet. Things we encountered in the past, I can show you too. We are humans too. We are a normal company, and we have these things too. We had within the last 15 months, or 15 months, we had only 2 unauthorized logins that were detected immediately, prepared by a phishing attack. So and locked down immediately. So the security incident event monitoring tool detected that there was an impossible travel activity, impossible login, and suspended the account directly. We have, of course, software vulnerabilities, patches or vulnerabilities that cannot be patched, or patches that need to be implemented very, very shortly. We had illegal contents. Usually, I wouldn't care about people downloading movies or pirate contents and so on. But if the police rushes in and seizes our hardware, that would be a problem for me. So that's why we prohibited these kind of contents and implemented other controls against it. Of course, we are a tech company with several hundred tech users, and they all think they know better than IT. And we have two problems, two struggles with it. Shadow IT, so I mean, illegally purchased and integrated IT, and we have insecure system configuration. Someone set it up. Maybe you know it all, set it up to running, and that's it. No further security concerns. That's was a big problem, and we developed a mandatory procurement process for it. So if someone wants to buy a solution, integrated solution, and we don't care if it's a commercial off the shelf software, SaaS or a server, a process must be followed. IT, security, legal compliance, privacy has to review it, and approve it, and IT has to take control over it, and security has to define security requirements for it. Even the community labs, you maybe have seen with Sebastian, followed this procedure.
Just by the way, that's an interesting thing. I mean, I wanted to speak about that a little bit later then, but if you think about all of the systems that we installed in different labs of the presets when I was a preset person, you can imagine that more or less every preset in the world has his own lab on specific hardware, on his laptop, or on some hypervisor system based on some Internux or whatever. And I cannot imagine how much effort or gray hairs it can cause that so much different people are using so much of different softwares with so much different license keys. And it's definitely extremely hard to get every system up and running and updated more or less in real time. So the discussion that I had with Andreas, or more Andreas with me, is definitely something that might hurt in the first step, but might definitely save our own reputation a couple of times as soon as it's done quite properly.
Yeah, that's the point. Usually, if you set up some demonstration environments and labs, as long as there is no internal data, sensitive data, customer data in it, PII, we wouldn't care. But if you fail, if you get hacked, people will always say, "Oh, look, IGEL got hacked," and then we have the trouble with customer contracts, privacy authorities, and so on. We don't want that. That's something we will restructure in the near future. You have maybe already seen. We want to consolidate all these labs as far as possible. As far we won't close your lab down. Don't worry. But we won't consolidate them in one big IaaS, PaaS cloud infrastructure for all sales, pre-sales related departments. And then everyone who needs a machine or a test will clone, will set up an account for this, will clone some machines. It will be a quick, secure, and really professional solution. Okay, information handling errors. Doug, where are you? No, people make mistakes.
Did I break the rules? Have I broke?
No. Not severely, but it's typical thing. These are the things that really make gray hair, because if you handle information wrong or special information wrong, you directly have to consider privacy and privacy authorities. Yeah, this is what happened a few times. People, for example, people throwing documents away in the paper bin without shredding it. Typical case. What did we have else? Support technician confused a customer with another. So the whole ticket, it was by mistake sent to another customer or responded to another customer. Yeah, directly privacy consideration and all the risk evaluation. Our privacy officer, external, internal, legal and compliance had to evaluate if we have to report this, if some kind of sensitive PII was disclosed, and so on. Yeah, these things happened a few times. They will happen again, but we train people, and teach them about the real important things, that the severe things won't happen again. Okay, malware and phishing. I've put it up in quantity and severity quite high. In fact, we have only few impacts with malware and phishing, but we have a quite restrictive policy. If we have a doubt, if someone clicked on a link, or people, we have an open culture. That's something. That's the first thing that I implemented was some kind of open mistake reporting culture. I don't know how to describe it. So what I said to people during security awareness, if you did something and you think, I'm not sure if it was right or wrong or something, ask me, report it. And people started reporting. I got some kind of mail, and really I'm not sure if I clicked on it. Okay, IT will have a look, and if something looks wrong, they will wipe the device, set it up, and we will be sure. Because I don't want looking back to these tailored malware, and these tailored attack, I don't trust a simple malware scan anymore. Even in doubt, we wipe devices, and then we set them up really quick, and people are up and running within 1 hour. And it happens less and less because people get better and better in identifying fish, spearfish, and all this other stuff. Okay, threats, risks, events, but there must be a way to handle it, and that's what I started setting up in last year. In fact, we are not finished yet. It's in ISO 27001 ISMS. It's quite simple to write policies, but write them that they work, are adapted to the company, and get approved, and up and running. It's a different thing. So I've set it up, and I think we will be. I'm quite confident we will be finished this year. So I'm planning to go into the 4th phase, the internal audit phase, and the management review, and so on, in September this year. So meanwhile, we considered all these controls, implemented the policies, or are still implementing them, getting them approved. That's what I will show you in detail. ISO 27005 risk management. That's what I learned in the last years, and it's a good framework accepted by customers. It's really comprehensive for external reviews. So I've chosen it out of this reason. As you know, it's security, organizational controls, technical controls, process and documentation. That's the whole magic behind it. One of the most important things for me, or in my experience, is security awareness. 80-90% of successful attacks start with deception of a user or user mistakes. So, and in the end, if you bring down security to to its essence, it's always least privilege and need to know. You can apply it on every system configuration. Technical controls, we have two strategies for this. Of course, we have a defense and def concept, so a layered security. And because we are lazy, we go into risk avoidance. We don't want to take care of security if an SaaS provider does it better than us. We want our people to have a good working day and not get lost in details. Process and documentation, it's policies, processes, records, documentation, all the ISO 27001 or other security standard stuff you already know. Then we have a reactive component, so detection, monitoring, and response of security incidents. Business continuity, it's quite important for us. Security reviews, vulnerability scans, security and penetration testing. And nothing to say here about internal audits, quality management. I will show you in detail what we are doing here. Okay, that's what I told you on the threat slide. We understood what you want. So this is a first step of an information security program, and should be always the first step, understanding the requirements, because an endless, very expensive security doesn't help us all. We need to fulfill the requirements we have to fulfill to make our business and so on. And as long we understood, from you, from our customers, from the contract and the security questionnaire we received, that you expect a long-term, reliable, and available, business partner, a software vendor. Of course, if we deliver good software, but we have to file bankruptcy because of a ransomware attack, tomorrow, it would endanger your whole software strategy, your decision to implement IGEL. So this is a point for us. Of course, you rely on software vulnerability management. You want to receive patches in 2 years too, not only 1 month after buying the software. Update and upgrade availability also. So development has to move on, develop new things, features, to provide you a new version in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Product reliability and integrity, it's product security. Product is secure in your environment, and we deliver it to your environment, in a real with integrity and reliability. So no vectors, no supply chain attacks. We, as far as we can see it. And of course, customer data and PII protection. That's mandatory, but it has a lot to do with trust and we can't afford it to lose PII or get it disclosed, or disclose sensitive PII. And the fines are quite very expensive, especially in accordance with GDPR. The risk-based approach. I'm sorry. It's quite simple. That's what we are doing with the whole security team. We are identifying risks, threats, vulnerabilities, asset owners. So we consider, based on the asset management, we consider every asset group, and which threats they are exposed to, which vulnerabilities they have, and from this we derive the risks and assess them. So currently, I've looked it up today. I'm managing 90 information security risks, not company or operational risks, especially IT, information security, product security risks. And of course, we manage these risks, manage and monitor them, the first two methods, but also we try to avoid risks. So the best method for avoiding risk is isolating them. That's what we did with our sensitive infrastructures. So development environment, customer support environments are both isolated. Development environment is isolated because, yeah, okay, it's clear. Yeah, we don't want someone to access and insert something. Customer support environment is also interesting. Why it is isolated? Of course, because we don't want no unauthorized external access, but we receive customer devices. Maybe they are infected, they are broken, or they have a backdoor. We cannot trust these devices, or not all of them. Yeah, so that's one of the reasons why they are isolated too. Okay, about risk transfer, the fourth method. Yes, of course.
Just share one short story on that one. When we spoke about the lab, one of the first time where Andreas came back to me, we spoke about the hardware, about some specifications, about how to ensure that the device itself is not in a, let's say, public network, that access from outside is limited, etc. But then we came quite soon to the software topic, and I was so, let's say, unconcerned that we ordered a FabulaTech software. It's a FabulaTech license in that case for testing purposes. And Andreas, you might tell us, but you went through different bulletins regarding that software, right? And you asked even the vendor itself if a specific breach was fixed by the vendor, right? It's a standard process you're following on that one.
Yes, definitely, yeah. I'm looking up the CVEs, some reports from security, or known issues and so on, always before implementing a software. Yeah,
that's impressive. I mean, I wasn't even aware of it, but you received, I guess, quite soon from FabulaTech the feedback that it was already fixed. So we're then allowed to install the software. So there was a process. I can tell that at IGEL, it wasn't there before you joined, because yeah, everyone could buy a software. I would not say on travel expenses, but yeah, more or less. And now it's way more restricted, but also more secured in that way.
Yes. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately for IGEL, we had to close it down. IGEL was, I was the first security officer at IGEL. No one did it before, and yeah, I had to close down this Wild West mentality. Everybody did what he wanted. We had a lot of luck because we already used the right technologies and the right solutions. So IT knew what they did. Yeah, in the core, where all the infrastructure services were business services and development services, they were secure. But okay, other more sales-related departments, yeah, if they always said, "Oh, I need a new tool, I'll implement it." Yes, but you are dealing with customer data and sales data. You can't do this right there. Yes, that's something we changed, and yeah, it makes me sleep a lot better. And especially, yeah, privacy too. Yeah, there was no privacy consideration. We had solutions implemented that were not GDPR compliant, or somebody bought a solution, yeah, that was not GDPR compliant. Yeah, and we had to stop it. The money was wasted. Yeah, but yeah, it's getting better in the future. Okay. Risk transfer and monitoring. Yeah, that's the fourth method we like a lot, because we are transferring risks to bigger companies. Yeah, so we are a Microsoft partner, and I must say I love Microsoft for all their security efforts they put into their products. So when we talk about our collaboration tools, communication tools, and our vital infrastructure on Azure, I'm not concerned at all about security breaches and so on, because they do the work for us. Of course, we have, depending on the implementation, we have to do our work too. But yeah, it's very, very hard to compromise Azure infrastructure, Office 365 infrastructure. Then the most important part here is, again, protect the user, because the user has access on SharePoint and all these collaboration stuff. Yeah, That's when we attack. On other solutions, yeah, ServiceNow, for example, our ITSM tool, and for many others, many other things. And for other solutions, we always request an ISO 27001 certification. All of our vital services are in ISO 27001 or similar, or additional certified SaaS providers. Things we manage as IaaS or PaaS are also in certified data centers. On-premise infrastructure is decreasing very, very rapidly. So second part, that's what I started. I've looked at what happens at IGEL, and I thought, okay, I can't do it with policies from the beginning. I need to train people. I need to explain them. And that's what I set up as one of my first actions. It was a security awareness training program. It's mandatory. It's annually. So we have an security basic training as part of the onboarding. So next week I'm starting with. I have 4 sessions with all onboarded people within the last year. And then in the second half, we will train all people with advanced security training. So it's mandatory for everyone too. There we are teaching. Okay, in the basic training, you know what we are training. Why are you a target? Why are we under attack? What can we do about it? How do you recognize fish? How do you deal with malware? What if you see something weird, and so on? Basic security stuff. In the advanced training, I tell people more about our policies and our internal tools, because if people start working with or start working more and rely on our tools, our collaboration tools, and use all the capabilities, they would automatically be safer. And we have special security awareness trainings for IT, because they have more privileges. Developers, it's at least annually a training, because we also do threat-based training now, or a few weeks ago, after the Kaseya ransomware or a supply chain attack. We set up special developer supply chain attack training, because they are the element that makes it possible. Only if a developer or a person close to the development gets compromised, and then works insecurely, violating our policies, ignoring our security mechanisms, it could get possible. And that's something we want to emphasize more and more. And what I'm doing quite regularly, if I encounter some kind of really interesting and good attack method, I write security warnings and send them out to everyone. It's so people see the example, how it looks like, what will happen when they click on it, what happens, what they can do if they clicked on it already, and so on. It's really always interesting what kind of examples of spear phishing and malware we encounter, because one example was very interesting for me. At IGEL we have the talks with HR, and then where people define the goals for the year. It starts regularly in February, I think, January, February. And in this time, we got attacked with an attachment with an Excel file with a bonus figures, for people. So it wasn't employees and bonuses, And we had to really force people not to click on it. it was really well prepared in time, yeah, and developed for IGEL, and yeah, it was some kind of internal knowledge, maybe. So quite impressive, yeah, how good this was prepared. And of course, we had a few people clicking on it, and yeah, we had to wipe their systems, clean it, and investigate how far it went. Yeah? Check the logs, if there was any access available, and so on. A lot of work, yeah, but it had to be done. So yeah, defense in depth. You know it all. You're here because of security, so I think you have a basic understanding. It's just layered security. At every security layer, yeah, if it works, the probability for a successful attack gets lower and lower. There is no 100% security, never. So attacker can always, decept, trick us into something. He can have luck. We can make mistakes. There's always probability that he will be successful, but we have to lower it with every layer. So of course we have a physical perimeter with physical access controls and so on. We have a network perimeter with application layer gateways, other security gateways I don't want to mention in detail, because this is a public session. Layer 2 is already the user, because he is in front of the endpoint or on terminal or whatever. So end user awareness and secure working methods. Work with our tools. Don't use Google Drive. Don't use Dropbox and so on. Don't or use only this and this working methods. Stay in our infrastructure. You have everything you need, and you will be fine. Endpoint and user security, of course, the endpoints are protected. They are equipped with multi-factor authentications for information access and VPN access. So administrators and developers accessing their sensitive infrastructures can access them only with multi-factor authentication. Of course, malware protection everywhere. Why do I have to say it? Because people told me, oh, we have Linux systems here, we don't need malware protection. That's something I changed immediately. There are malware protected systems everywhere, even the Linux, and never mind how rare it is, can be infected with malware. Patch
management. By the way, just one
one
thing I could share also from the history. When I started Agile, we already had Lenovo as the main partner for preset laptops and general laptops, but there wasn't something else. So a lot of people were asking for Mac OS devices, etc. So it wasn't possible because the IT supplier we had at this moment were not able to deliver all the component that we had at the moment for the on-prem installation on all that operating system levels, even not on Linux. And the fun fact was, I mean, I'm not sure if it's really fun, but we mostly had Windows 7 embedded IGEL devices in our company, and we were not using IGEL OS at all in that case. And just because we weren't aware of how to install that feature set. And besides that, we had most of the systems on-prem. So it was nothing cloud-based or even not partially. So the biggest change to Office 365 and everything that our IT did made us way more agile than we went before.
Yeah, that was the old IGEL. I'm glad that I didn't see much from it anymore. Yeah. So as all the things beside all the things I'm telling here, when I started IGEL, technically they were quite good and secure. Yeah. Meanwhile, we changed, we restructured IT before I came. Yeah, we got a new CIO. Yeah, who's now also our COO. And he saw what was going on and changed a lot immediately. Okay, malware protection is patch management, of course. Keeping it's an easy thing too. But if you have 400 different devices, you have 800 different patch levels. Yeah, that's something we had to enforce too. Conditional access, it's something we implemented so that only if a device is compliant, it can access our information systems. Yeah, least privilege need to know. Yeah, I say it again. Network security. So if you infect the endpoint, you have to go through the network. Yeah, of course we have logical separation, we have physical separation, we have security gateways, we have network access protection for unauthorized devices, we have intrusion detection, encryption in transit. Yes, all this, all what can be done on the network side, we implemented it. And of course, in the backend, in the server infrastructure, yes, secure system provisioning. That's the process Sebastian already mentioned. Yeah, secure engineering principles for all types. System hardening. Yeah, so even if it's configured and provided and already productive, we harden the system. Then of course, patches and changes management are only done in accordance with the process. Critical patches are always implemented, or must be implemented within 40 days. But I didn't see it take longer than a few days during my time. Yeah. Vulnerability and threat management. We go on threat hunting. We scan our servers for vulnerabilities, for misconfigurations. That's what the security analyst does. Yeah, and we reconfigure them if we detect something. And yeah, what I told Sebastian in our briefing for this too, if you scan for vulnerabilities and you don't find anything, you cheated somehow. There's always something. Yeah, there's always something. We did a scan last week, and I'm very glad that we found something we could close down. Of course, it was not critical. It was in a sealed environment, yeah, without external access. But yeah, you never know. Yeah, so we closed it down too. Okay. No, wait a moment. It won't move anymore. Okay. Yes, documentation. It's a documentation part of the ASMS. It's mandatory. We developed and a lot of policies and processes for all employees, for special scopes, HR, for example. So yes, of course, we have acceptable use, mobile device, teleworking, information classification and handling. You know, it's about 40 policies that are the mandatory part of the ISMS. Yeah. We focused on the secure development, of course, because, as I said, this is our treasure. This is my first policy. Yeah, not this one, but this one, because, in my eyes, it was the biggest risks. Yeah, that there is no, documented information for it. My product security colleague developed the secure SDLC, secure coding guidelines, and many, many more of this documentation. Now we can be quite sure of. Since over 1 year, we can be sure that people now know what they have to do. Vulnerability and threat management for product and operations. So the security analyst doesn't do it only for the operations, but also for the product side. Yeah, because yes, we deliver you an operating system and other products, and we even take care of the external packages we get from the open source community. Yeah, we use in this. Okay, and yes, of course, the standard processes. I don't have to mention it anymore, but maybe not mentioning it would raise a question on your side. So of course, change management, configuration management, patch management, system provisioning, HR processes, onboarding, offboarding, security checks, disciplinary process, everything is there. Yeah. Now we come to the reactive side. So we know, no one is perfect, nobody's perfect. Attack methods are getting better. Yeah, technologies can fail. Yeah, technologies can be dodged, and humans make mistakes. So the reactive security component is as important as all the preventive controls. For this reason, we run a security incident and event monitoring, to detect and report security events. Common events, usual events, as expected, are handled automatically. as I told you, the compromised account, the compromised user account, locked down immediately without any harm. And other incidents are processed via the information, the IT service desk's security playbook. For example, as I told you, the malware infection, phishing infection, and so on. Yeah, if you have any doubt about it being clean, wipe it, set it up new. Don't waste time about thinking and investigating too much. Yeah, what we do too is regular security reviews. Yeah, as these internal and external vulnerability scans. So we have external solutions that scan all our internet available services. The internal scans are performed. Yeah, just help us to detect deviations. Yeah, and insecure assets. Shadow IT. Yeah, how we call it. So an unauthorized asset set up as whatever testlab04.igel.com is detected immediately. Annual penetration test, that's something we do since a lot of years, on products and customer facing infrastructure. They provide results from a different point of view, because pen testers have an act like an attacker, and they think different, and they provide different results. What I can recommend, because we do several pen tests customers also do pen tests on our products, and when we get the pen test results, they found different things than our pen test. And then we receive a third pen test result, again, with other results. So sometimes it's quite smart to change the pen test company, pen test provider, to change the point of view of the attacker. Of course, business continuity helps us to handle all unusual or bigger events. That's one of my biggest parts within my past. So I'm quite experienced business continuity manager. I'm training this stuff with IT and so on. So we tested it during COVID that we can work from anywhere. So as you have seen, we had a six layer security. I didn't explain layer 6. So this was the old active countermeasures. The reactive part is layer 6. I wanted to show you an example, because it's a current example for me. So how would it look like with a supply chain attack? Okay, if you wanted to compromise our product, you would have to find it, from the internet, from an unauthorized network. So it's separated. You wouldn't have access to it. If you would find an access point, you would have to to fake the multi-factor access, for VPN, for the accounts used on this. Then you would get stuck in the access controls. Least privilege, need to know, and conditional access. Your device wouldn't be compliant in some cases, or you would have, if you overcome this defense mechanism, you would have a quite limited view on products and infrastructure. Secured endpoints. It's not easy to get them. I don't want to talk too much in detail about it. Hardened systems, although they are hardened, even on developer endpoints complaining about performance issues, we do regular scans, real-time scans, security incident event monitoring. Again, these vulnerability scans, detecting intrusion detection, waiting for unusual traffic, monitored access to artifacts. So if you would touch and change source code, or artifacts, it would be detected. If you would change code on a development station somehow, we have a 4 eyes principle. Before getting code contributed into the build repositories, and we have a code analysis. I don't want to tell too much about it too. So there are 2 mechanisms to detect potential backdoors. And the code analysis is, of course, it's machine-based. It's quite good. It knows all the bad tricks. Security testing, we do it during developing and QA. That's what the security analyst does. Penetration tests, I manage it, and vulnerability and dependency management. We even take care after the software, the version has been released. We take care and monitor the packages you receive too. For example, OpenSSL, SSH, the standard Linux packages, if they have a vulnerability, we monitor it, and we can inform you. Okay, continuous improvement, of course. Better secure than sorry. That's what I say. We do audits, reviews, and all this improvement stuff. We start with the annual internal ISMS audit this year, just attached to other management systems at IGEL. We have annual external BCM and business resiliency assessments, from the finance aspects, that check us from this perspective, and we have these penetration tests by IGEL and customers. To get an ISO 27001 certification would be my goal too, but that's something we will consider when we're done. For a company acting worldwide with so much employees, it's quite expensive. And if it would lower the effort, for security contracts, security questionnaires, we would definitely set it up. If customers would say, and that's something we would check, I don't care if you are certified, please fill out my questionnaire, and that's an experience we made in the past, we wouldn't want to spend this money for this. That's my personal opinion. Okay, and maybe that's what I recommend to the executive board. Of course, management reviews and reporting. That's what I build up in at IGEL. So we have the management attention after so many years. We have the management attention for security. We have a weekly meeting with IT management, CIO, and all the other VPs. We have a monthly meeting with the managing director. We have a quarterly risk reporting with all our executive leadership. And of course, we monitor our key performance indicators that we see we get better. This is the right thing, what we're doing. For example, after security awareness, the amount of incidents, went down. But the amount of false positives and questions to me raised significantly. But that's my job. So I'm really glad that people ask me then before they click on something done. Okay, what will we do in the future? 3 last slides, and sorry we're a little bit over the time, but I think it might be okay. Yes, we want to get better, and we want to work less. Yes, so we are currently evaluating a security incident and event monitoring, with a security operations center and the security orchestration and response as a service. So we want this to be done by experts, 24/7 worldwide, with threat intelligence, with all the knowledge, with all the experience they made before the attack hit us. So they can already tell us, what's going on and what we can do against it. A vulnerability management service, it's from the same provider, a module for this. So a real-time reporting of vulnerabilities based on our CMDB assets. And even suggesting countermeasures for unfixed vulnerabilities. Seems seems to make patch management easier and quicker and more secure in the future. So we will evaluate it too. Managed intrusion detection, that's something we want to do not anymore in the future. So looking everything, you know, security incident, event monitoring, and intrusion detection, it's a real high effort. So look through all the alerts, go after it, and so on. And there's where AI brought efforts too. So we want a managed IDS solution, yeah, focused on unbound connections, risk-based, yeah, evaluating all the communication artifacts and classifying them, then sending them over to a human, yeah, a security analyst, and then suggesting us countermeasures, yeah. And what I'm very glad about, security PMO, project management office integration, yeah. Security got ignored a little bit too often in the past. Now our milestones are mandatory. Yeah, the project does not move further before we did not security considerations, security design in products, and so on. And data leak prevention, my personal wish, my personal dream. So yes, of course, our treasure is development, but we also have all the collaboration, communication stuff, yeah, accessible from everywhere. It's quite easy to move data somewhere else. Yeah, you know people making their personal backup. It's I think it's common in every company. Yeah, I want to prevent that, or if it happens, I want to know it. Yeah. Okay, so last slide. Yeah. As I said, there is no 100% security, but I think we're doing a lot to keep up with this arms race. We invest in modern technologies, invest in reliable solutions, yeah, and this is the best we can do. Yeah, if we get a target, yeah, so yeah, we did our best to defend it, and if it happens, yeah. That's what we have to do: survive, improvise, adapt, overcome, handle it, take, reduce the damage, yeah, and move on with the lessons learned. Okay, thank you very much.
We have to say thank you, Andreas. It was really interesting. We already knew a couple of stuff, but I guess for our audience who just know IGEL as a vendor or as a software provider, they never thought about all the processes that have been taken in the last years regarding security. So that was definitely, together with Matthias Huber, an extremely helpful insight about how IGEL is acting in that specific area. Before closing the session, because we have one question from David who had to leave, but the question itself needs to be answered. There was some discussion earlier regarding vendor and software review and made me think about the Kaseya ransom attack. Does IGEL use Kaseya software? I think I know the answer, but I'm not positive. Along that same line, does IGEL have an official response anywhere stating that, similar to what Cisco put out about it? I'm not sure if you see it, Andreas, in the question and answer section. If you can't answer it right now in a couple of sentences, I would say we'll keep it for afterwards. But that's a question that David Prowse sent out.
I've looked at the link, so let me answer it. No, we don't use Kaseya software, and we didn't use it at any time. Yeah, and we made something different. We made a statement too, a more detailed statement for customers. Yeah, but we don't make it public because it's a little bit more maybe precise about all our security mechanisms defending us against supply chain attacks, and we sending it out only to customers with a valid NDA.
Okay,
yeah, but it's we don't have much security stuff on our homepage yet. No much public announcements. I will think about it when we're done with the ISMS, when we really can say, okay, all documentation is finished, approved, then we can think about writing a public security policy and doing public statements. That's something I would avoid right now because maybe it's too much.
Understood.
Okay.
So David, if you want to get that, just write us in Slack or in via email, and I will check, because most of our insiders are under NDA, so we can check if that makes sense or not. But that was definitely a talk we will take afterwards. So perfect. Then we are done with the questions. Thank you very much, Andreas, and to the audience. So thank you very much. Doug, some closing words?
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you, Andreas. I thought Rody did an amazing job, and then you come along and blow him away. Well, I won't say blow him away, but blow me away, excuse me. So I really enjoyed both sessions, and I will try to follow your rules.
Thank you. So stay safe.
On that note, yeah, we definitely went over. I thank the folks that stick around, and I apologize to the ones that left early, but of course we record these sessions. So, you know, folks can watch this after. They're just great content. And I usually, with events like this, you know, the ones we do and other people do, actually tend to really enjoy the recordings, because I can stop and re-listen to what someone might have said and say, oh, okay, so this is how it works, or follow the screen or what have you. So really great content. I really enjoyed this. And like I said, so August we're going to take off, but we'll be back in September. So Rody, he's actually at a barbecue right now. So thank you very much. Andreas, thank you very much. You stuck around late. You have a family. Go enjoy your family and your kids. And Sebastian, come on, hero.
All right.
So on that note, thank you all for joining this IGEL Community webinar. We'll see you in September.
Goodbye.
See you guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers.